today's world of work, leaders are being forced into a series of if this or that choices. This or that. Control versus empowerment. Stability versus agility. Automation versus humanity. And the real skill right now is actually holding the space for a both and. Or as my license plate says, yes and. I'm Tammy J. Bond. Welcome to the Leadership Sandbox. We're excited that you're here. And I want to talk as we're rounding out 2025 about that leadership paradox of control versus empowerment with you today. My hope is to reframe some of your thinking into that both and thinking. It doesn't have to be either or. It can be yes and, both and, not one or the other. So how do we do that? Because the reality is right now, friends, you're not paid to keep people comfortable. You're actually being paid as the leader to keep them trusted and productive in times of uncertainty. And here's the tension. This episode, we're going to dive into exactly what 2024 and 2025 research says about how managers are drowning and what they're drowning in. So this one's for you today as we round out 2025 with this paradox and get into a framework of our both and thinking. So it doesn't have to be paralyzing, but it can actually promote to greater opportunity because the tensions are real. They're not theoretical. They're not made up and contrived. They're real. And CCL, the Center for Creative Leadership, identifies persistent tension for today's leaders as juggling people and results, leading change and managing complexity. Those are the greatest tensions that leaders are facing in the workplace right now. And Deloitte in 2025, their global human capital trends study said this: leaders are stuck between control or empowerment, stability or agility, automation or augmentation. But the winning organizations treat these as a both and, not an either or. And as I like to train people into a yes and framework of thinking, it works so well in bold conversations. It works so well when setting up clarity of expectation. It works so well when navigating difficult challenges in the workplace. That both and, yes and mindset is a possibility mindset. And we've said it before in the sandbox that what we focus on, or what we focus our attention on, is what we create, even just through the energy of that force field of where we place our attention. What we focus on most gets our attention and our action, and it may not be what we want. So framing up our mindset going into this new year is something I want to empower you with. I want to equip you with today. And if we were to tie this into AI, right? Every AI decision exposes the tensions instantly. Who decides, who benefits, who's displaced? Every tension that AI exposes instantly gives you an opportunity to go, wait, how do we make this a both and? How do we keep both? How do we say yes and here's what's coming? How do we say it doesn't have to be an either or crisis situation? Those tensions we can suspend and reframe it in a conversation of, so how do we get rid of the tension and make this a both and so it's a win-win? Control can often feel safer, right? To control the outcomes as we're finishing out this year, but it costs you engagement with your team members. Over 2025, global engagement slipped to around 21%, with managers' engagement dropping from 31 to 27% and driving huge productivity loss. Capacity issues, ceiling of complexity issues, where we have all of these options before us, but we don't have the ability to decipher what is the best option timeline to take. And we get stuck in muddling in the what ifs, and that's paralysis by analysis. So we want to, hopefully, my goal is to help you learn how to step into pushing pause, take a breath and go, wait, where's our both and opportunity? So we're not paralyzed by either or. we get the opportunity to shift into how do we make it a win, a both and. In many organizations, managers they're now overseeing almost 3 times as many people as they did just a few years ago. So we're adding, we're taking away leaders, or they're leaving, which I'm fine with streamlining. However, we're not actually dividing up the people in equal proportion to the management. And there's so much complexity in today's workflows that managing to the people, if the people aren't equipped, which so many organizations aren't onboarding correctly and not equipping their team members correctly to actually succeed, it's putting more of a burden on the managers. It's adding to the stress, and it's also adding to that temptation of micromanagement, that need and want to control because it feels safe because I can see it and I've got it inside my container. But the reality is no one's going to grow. You're going to suffocate everyone in that moment. So when overwhelmed, let's reframe the overwhelm and the default that we have to seeking more approval and having more meeting and creating less autonomy for people because you're pulling them in too close, not giving people the capacity to think things through, right? And we'll say, oh, we just don't have time for that. So we're going to tighten the screws on everybody and bring everybody in closer. That actually pushes people away. It disempowers people, and it says that you don't trust them, which, as we know, is one of the greatest challenges, one of the greatest issues impacting leaders today is lack of trust. And people are leaving or they're quiet quitting because they just, why bother? It becomes a why bother. So empowerment doesn't need to be chaos. You can use Deloitte's model of trust and human sustainability. And the idea of when people thrive best and when businesses thrive best, it's actually when they feel empowered to do so. And there are clear principles and clear guidelines and guardrails, not handcuffs, and a freedom from inside a clear framework to succeed. When people have that, that autonomy grows, that sense of self grows into being a confident risk taker because they understand that's welcomed versus controlled. Because again, control can seem like safety, but it actually disempowers the people around you. We want to let teams design their own targets based on the goals. Here's the goals. How do we hit the targets? What are those targets? And what's the way you're going to get there as a team versus needing to be the leader that tells them all the time? Give them the clarity of what you want. Let them figure out the how. I take it back to even raising kids. Boy, I don't load the dishwasher the same way that my husband loads the dishwasher. And I don't care about that. But you know what? He does. So we just have a rule. I load and then he goes in and fixes it. I don't get annoyed because he fixes it if that's how he wants to use his precious time at home to fix the dishwasher, because they're all going to get cleaned. However, teenagers, different story. We do need to go in and work with them on how to load a dishwasher so that things aren't stacked on top of each other and won't get clean, right? How does this apply? It feels often that we're kind of micromanaging, even though we've given the guardrails, but really we just get to go back and repeat and repeat and repeat the same messaging again and again. And it's kind of silly. But the reality is I know that is what the teenager needs. I can let go of what my husband needs from how the dishwasher looks because he'll just change it to how he wants it. And I'm okay with that. And we do fine with it. I know that's kind of a silly analogy, but listen, when your team gets to decide how they put the dishes in the dishwasher and you step back and release control of that, you're actually saying to the team, I trust you, you've got it. And hey, if the dishes come out dirty, you're going to rewash them. That's up to you if you want to spend your precious time that way. But when you put the decision authority one level down, but keep escalation rules clear, right? The decision making one level down on things, but when they have an issue, they have the process to go through to escalate it. That frees you and your people up to be more efficient. And listen, there are 3 non-negotiable conversations I want you to have for 2026 as we're rounding out this year. What are the decisions that you're ready to own? Right? I want you to ask your team that to free you up. Ask the team, what are the decisions you're ready to own so I can step out of it, and agree on what those metrics are and what those boundaries are. I want you to ask your team, where am I over controlling you? And I want you to invite the honest, open feedback from them. Give them the freedom to share that with you, and then define together how you're going to take action to shift that control. And then I want you to bring in the AI conversation. How will we use AI without losing the soul of our company to move us forward, and not from a place of fear, but of confidence? Let's use it as a tool. It's another team member. And how do we co-create those rules so that we stay human, right? In all of our decision making and our disciplines and our performance? And where can AI support us in that, assist us in that? Listen, as you're rounding out this year, I want you to take some time and list out 3 things that you currently control that you could release to your team. Because the paradox of control versus empowerment, to make it a both and thinking, is going to be a superpower for you going into the new year. But before we can employ that superpower to its fullest, we want to understand where our rate limiting step has been because we've tried to control it too much. And I want you to define or identify what's one thing that you can hand off to your team this month before we even change the year. And if you don't feel that you have one thing that you can, then you want to ask yourself, is this something about risk, or is it my ego? Is it my fear? Am I not trusting? And what's causing that? Because then that's the conversation that you get to have with your team going into 2026. Both and. It doesn't need to be controlled and contrived and restrained. You can have it be a both and. The dishes in the dishwasher still get washed. It's a both and. Just depends on who loads it and how they look when they come out, or go in for that matter. Your people are asking for the same freedoms. You don't like how they do it, talk to them about it. Don't go just over and redo it. Unless you have an agreement like my husband and I do. Then go ahead, reload the dishwasher. Take your time to do that. But I'm going to release him to do that and not be annoyed by it, because the reality is it's more important to him than it is to me on that. Okay, I respect that. So do you have a dishwasher scenario in your workplace? Are you that one that goes in and reloads it after it's already been loaded? And how is that showing up in your workplace with your team? Control versus empowerment. I want you to think about that going into 2026 and use it to your advantage as a superpower leader. Both and thinking. It's a really great tool. Hey, thanks for joining me in the sandbox today. Make it a great day. Have fun as you're planning out for your 2026. This is an exciting time of year, and I'm glad that you took time to grow into your next level of leadership in the sandbox today. Make it a great day. God bless you.